We have selected that particular discourse as Sangiti Sutta, that is a kind of recommendation and was Sariputta give for the protection of the dispensation as well as one's own spiritual development, that is to be recited together. That is asking for the peace and agreement and certainly recited that is one has by heart. So there are 10 things he has put under this category as Natakana Dhamma, and gradually we have come to the last one, that is to say one has to be wise with wise perception on the rising and passing away, that ideal perception leading to the cessation of suffering. So this is the surmounting of all the aspects we have discussed so far, and therefore this is a kind of a contributive, cumulative action happening, and it is ending up with wisdom. So all the others are geared and converted into this aspect, and culmination or ceremony is happening. Wisdom, that is about every variety arising thing has the nature of passing away. So far we were discussing and trying to understand how much we can see in any phenomena or any object, how to observe from arising to its maturity. Because as we try to understand, our mind is always happy with things that have already matured and try to entertain its permanent notion, so auspicious side and desirable size, and to recognize that particular thing with myself or with my conceit, or to have desire for already arisen thing. And as far as someone get amused, someone get possessed with this kind of attachment to already arisen thing, the Buddha criticize it, telling that is due to one's delay. One is not diligent, one has to be quite negligent to attach, to develop an attachment to already arisen thing. Instead, the Buddha says, okay, now we have developed the habit of making attachment with already arisen, keeping that in the same way intact. Meanwhile, try to see the arising part, the beginning of this very thing, and that is what we call the restrainment, or threefold restrainment: moral restrainment, concentration restrainment, and the wisdom. So yesterday also we try to understand when and where one become mindful, he or she is going to get the clarity, lucidity towards the past, what he or she has done and what he or she has heard about. That means in order to understand the transient nature, the comparison should take place while your attention is then and there on the crispy present nature. There is a kind of inferential knowledge, kind of comparison, kind of rational knowledge to see what happened in the chronological order. So therefore, while you try to keep the attention here and now, there's another kind of a calculation going on as to from where does it come to this level and how that transition, how that changing thing happen. So unless otherwise you have both the dimension, or both the aspects in your meditation, hardly any evolution can take place. So therefore attention is here and now. You see along one object or along one any experience, what is happening here and now in the crispy present way, and while observing you have to accept there's a kind of inferential the rational thing is happening. It is comparing with from where does it come to that level. So that comparison only going to give the notion of transient nature. And therefore, while you try to be mindful, you have to appreciate there's such a thing happen. So yesterday we tried to understand as far as the first impression, as far as the superficial observation is concerned, you just see the tip of the iceberg, already a recent thing. So when and where it happens, it's very beautiful. It has its own shape, its own natural characteristics, its own shapes and the manners. So you recognize it, you label it, you put a name to it, with that its own attributions. So this is how this world came into being. So it is a kind of a conventional truth. So this is the starting point. But one thing is very obvious in the nature, things are not happening once and for all, they are repetitive in action. They are always in cyclic way. So when and where you are bound to observe one thing, if you are patient enough to see when it is arising again and again, your restrainment or your focus must be to not only to see the reason, natural characteristics and the shapes and the manners, and to see, if possible, diligently, one thought moment before, to see how it is arising. Where it is, so you have to understand it is going against the grain, and you are putting the attention to see the arising part, because it is easier to nip it at the butt level, rather than once become very mature. So this we apply to the in-breath and out-breath. So when and where you go to the early part, you see from the very subtle beginning, is very fast becoming mature and hard to assume its natural characteristics, and more you to observe right from the beginning. One day you will understand the beginning area is very transient, very vapor-like, not much consolidated. Once it assumes some maturity, momentum, only you can recognize the in-breath versus out-breath, attributable characteristics of the in-breath against the out-breath happens. So more and more you practice, you see one thing, the in-breath, the cross in-breath
gushing through your nostrils. At the beginning, it is not in the same characteristic. It is very subtle, and then roasting happens. More and more you observe it, more and more you become acquainted with that. There's yet another endowment you are going to see is the thing which has come to the gross middle ultimately reduced back to the exactly the same way to the end of the breath. End and the beginning is almost the same. So therefore, when you're observing anything arising, it is very thrilling. You fill with thrills and frills and the emotions and the tension and kind of thing is arising. So at the peak of the object, you are filled with interest and motivations and kind of thing. And if you are not filled with the tension and patient enough to see, ultimately reducing, and at the end it's almost assimilated like the beginning. So restrainment part or training part is only concerned from the middle to the beginning. So more and more you practice it, it needs lot of energy, because mind is always happy to see already arisen thing. So therefore, energy is to apply, the virya is to apply to see the beginning. So that means mindfulness at the beginning must be backed by the energy, and when and where you familiarize it, one day you will see whatever arisen ultimately going to repeat the same kind of process, and ultimately reduces to the exactly the zero level at the end of the process. So as far as the early part is assured, the second part, where the cessation, where the wear and tear, where the disappearance is, the Buddha says, it's an endowment for adventurous yogi. So that is the part belongs to the wisdom. Because our rational mind is not happy to see the end of anything. It is always happy to see the beginning part. It is always happening to see ascending order, but the descending order considered as something unauspicious, bad omen. So therefore, even when it is happening, our mind develops the blind side to that disappearing part. Therefore, we have so far seen, if at all, only the 50% of the truth. The balance we have refused in a conditional way. So more and more you practice, one day you will be stark open to see, even though you are welcoming towards the rising part of it, each and everything is endowed with the disappearing part. So more and more you try to do away with the disappearing part, your knowledge is not balanced. Your knowledge is not mature enough, and that is happening due to kind of a phobia, kind of a fearfulness, kind of uncertainty, kind of entertaining doubts. So therefore it is already happening thing, but you have to be very wise, you have to be very prepared, you have to be very well instructed to let the phenomena to take place, the natural disappearance part, and to be totally diligent, totally vigilant, totally mindful, totally aware of the cessation. So when and where that is given equal chance, just like the rising part and the disappearing part, the difference between two events, two incidents, two experiences disappear, you may find each and every experience, each and every object, each and every phenomena exactly the same. It has its beginning, the middle and the end, but unless otherwise you have a developed mind, you never see the end of it. For example, if you take a birth of a human being, we are very happy to see the birthday, and we are very happy to give presents and throw parties on birthday parties. But when and where that person is about to die, sick, old age, you consider, don't talk about this thing, it is not nice, it is not auspicious to talk. It is natural thing, why should we talk? Why can't we talk about the birthday parties? We never talk about the deceased party or passing away party, so that we consider as something not auspicious. Exactly the same in all the phenomena. So therefore, when the suffering arises, you have to have a kind of positive, creative idea to see the beginning of the suffering. For that there should have a boldness, there should have a kind of a fair understanding about the suffering, or consider the suffering as a raw material and go to the beginning. More and more you go to the beginning, you find nip it at the bud level easier, but due to our negligence, so far we never managed to see the beginning of the suffering. So therefore we thought suffering is already arisen like a product in the supermarket cupboard, and you think it is already prepared thing. But when and where you are meditating, you understand it is happening in a chronological order, happening in a very subtle way, and once it come up to the full-fledged mode, difficult to bear it up. But more and more meditation indicate it becomes so hard and fast because of your negligence. If you are diligent, you can see the rising part. But when it is arising, huge tension. Why this kind of suffering arising? For a person like me so virtuous, for a person like me so generous, for a person like me so concentrated, but anyway things are happening. But if you're patient enough to see, even you miss the chance to see the beginning, starting from very subtle to this kind of a manifestation, again same thing repeating, that very gross thing disappearing in a gradual process, and ultimately going back to the very subtle area. But for that you have to have the forbearance, you have to have the wisdom to see the cessation part. So as far as the Four Noble Truths are concerned, the Buddha given the first truth, the suffering, two adjectives: noble, truth. Usually we call suffering, but when you add the noble truth of suffering, it is spiritual. It is religious. Suffering as such is something to be do away with. But when you put noble truth of suffering, we take all pain in order to understand it, in order to welcome it, because it is very spiritual. So it is adding only two adjectives, noble and the truth. So that means you give a kind of a positive approach towards the suffering. Uninstructed person or unprepared person at the outset hates suffering. But when you practice, you try to see suffering as something natural, not to hate, but if possible to consider it as a noble one, as a truth. It is none of your business, that's a universal truth. Only when you develop that kind of a positive outlook, you can see the beginning of suffering. Otherwise, you have a general hatred to the suffering, so therefore you never treat it as a raw material. You always develop phobia to get rid of undermining tendencies, ever the hatred. In order to get rid of the hatred and to see the truth of suffering, then only you, if at all, you can see the beginning, and when it is going to the beginning, it is again come back to your same, your own desire. There is no second person in you. And then the Buddha says, whether you do anything or not, that very suffering is going to the phase of cessation, and that cessation is already inbuilt in the very phenomena of suffering, in the very phenomena of object. So only thing is, patiently you have to see, we have to wait till the cessation part is arising, before reacting, before assuming, before jumping into it with the hatred. So if you patiently look at the cessation part is inbuilt. Any phenomena, if you take a bell-shaped curve, whenever you observe the rising part, exactly the other part is a mirror image, disappearance is happening. So therefore, to cessation to happen, there is no contribution you can do. There is no any facilitation or facility you can give. You have to give. To merely observe it, and in order to get that confidence, in order to get that familiarity, only you see the rising part. And once you see the rising part, the cessation is an endowment, but you must be a wise man. Otherwise you hate it, because you don't like to see the cessation part of anything. So therefore this wisdom is something need no any kind of fuel, need no any kind of input, but you have to be very patient, and that your patience must be endowed with non-reaction, unassuming, and distance observation. So therefore the cessation is not away from this world, not away from your experience, not away from the suffering. It is the other side of the suffering. So therefore traditional Buddhists in countries like Sri Lanka, they thought nowadays you can't go to the enlightenment, you have to wait till the next Buddha to arise, because this time only the suffering, the cessation part is now out of date. You can't. So therefore before the 1956, there was a notion, nowadays meditation is useless, no teachers available, it is useless business because you can't see the cessation, only the rising part. So it's such a duality. They think rising part is available, but the cessation part is not there. That is the paralytic kind of understanding. But what the Buddha says is, if there is something arising, the cessation part is, it's due endowment. But the thing is, you have phobia, you have a resistance, you are looking at it with the hatred. So whole practice, whole restrainment is to look at the phenomena without develop hatred, or without develop any kind of a desire, or any reaction, or any assumption. So when it is happening, the panya, the wisdom, is to just observe patiently. When you are observing, cessation is already with the arising part. So when the Buddha give the first sermon after his enlightenment, Venerable Kondanya, he grasped the idea and he says, Yang kinchi samudaya dhamma sabbanta nirodha dhamma. But if I am to summarize the whole sermon, anything has a nature of arising, that very thing has the nature of cessation. So therefore, and the Buddha, he put a truth or sentence within brackets. He put, anything arising at all in the world is nothing but suffering. Anything arising is suffering. But luckily, but unlucky enough, we see the arising part of the suffering and we hate the cessation part of suffering. So Buddha says, please shift your attention, develop the arising part, observe it, and have the same patience, same non-reaction if possible toward the cessation. So more and more cessation means more and more lack of suffering. Anything arising is a friction, anything arising is a torturing, anything arising is a burning, anything arising is a tension, anything arising is a frustration. So observe when it is arising and keep on observing. It has its own nature to cease, to exist. But the thing is, we are so skillful to stop at the highest level of the frustration, stop at the highest level of the tension and torturing and burning and claim it myself. No patience to see its natural death. and we go and asking the cessation from our other agents. We consult outside people, I have such a tension, I have such a frustration, I have such a burden, I have such a burning nature, please help. But the Buddha says, instead of asking second person, be patient and see anything arising and it has its own nature, ceases to exist. So therefore, without getting excited, without getting involved, without getting committed into the phenomena, get a distance and just see the ending part. You see exactly the natural way, the way it arises, it ceases to exist. So it is very difficult to understand because of our impatience, because of our negligence, because of our conditioning. We are very happy to see the rising part, but naturally we don't like the cessation. So therefore, it's a changing of the attitude. At least exactly the same enthusiasm you have to see the beginning, wait till the situation, end the phenomena, end of the phenomena, and ultimately you come back to the exactly the zero tension level, exactly the zero burning level, exactly to the zero torturing level. But the thing is, before ceasing, we catch hold into another one, and again keep our attention in the high peak level, and ultimately grow and crack and unbearable level, because we never have patience to see the beginning, the middle and the end of one single phenomenon, one single object, one single arising. And when it is happening, if you have that kind of a patience, that means your potential is there. Then the meditative life or your livelihood is to give a chance for this repetitive arising and passing away to happen in front of you without committing yourself, without forking fingers into yourself. That means non-reaction way. So that Buddha says the importance of the wisdom. It's very, it is cannot be overemphasized. So develop wisdom only. We have to start with moral restrainment, have to have a lot of listening or book knowledge, and then be obedient and be very affable, and then learn more and more what is going to give a more and more relaxation, and be mindful, be energetic, and ultimately you will see the cessation part. When the cessation part arises, you have to withdraw everything, let these variables to work in alignment. Ultimately you are bound to see the cessation part. So therefore, in the 7 stages of purification, it says up to the level you to see the beginning, the middle and the end of the phenomena in the same order or same intention. You have to keep all practice, because our mind never wait to see beginning, the middle and the end in the same light, under the same light. So once it is taken up to that level, to see the phenomena from the beginning through the middle to the end, ultimately what happens to your practice is you do away with, you don't look at the beginning and the middle. Ultimately you are bound to see only the end, because you can see so far I was suppressing that, so far I had the hatred towards that, but therefore I have seen only, if at all, 50% of the phenomena. Now I can see the end of it, and more you familiarize, ultimately you see only the end. Everything is breaking away, everything is ceases to exist. And when that is happening, according to the present jargon of the psychiatry, it says depressed, or you can say it is boring, it is very doubtful, uncertain. And therefore, when and where the meditation happens, if you are not with the meditation circle, if you are not with enough knowledge, if you are not with much preparation, these stages appear something pathogenic, appear something negative. So therefore, if you are going to consult under such circumstances with people, those who are thinking only the sense pleasure, only the pleasure principle, they will give you psychedelic medicine, telling something wrong somewhere. So that is the point where you are the true people, true friends, noble friends is very important, and your theory knowledge is very important. Your past experience is very important, and your preparedness is very important. You are helpless at that level. At that time only this Natakarana Dhamma, the protection is necessary. So therefore, you will never see the cessation part of any phenomena in the meditative way at the early part of your meditation. Early part, what you do is building up how from nothingness the matter come into being, mentality come into being, and when you observe very clearly, you see any phenomena together with the beginning. More and more familiar, when the maturity is ready, you are bound to see not only the beginning, through the middle, to the end also. When it is happening, it's a huge amount of nauseatic feeling. It's a huge amount of lost kind of feeling, fearful kind of feeling, uncertainty kind of feeling, boredom, monotony going to happen. So they are very productive hints to say progress is now there. But you have to look at it from that constructive point of view. That is what here meant by wisdom. Otherwise, your normal reaction is to do away with that. So therefore, in the Vipassana knowledges, this Nibbida Jnana, Nibbida means you are not relinquishment, not entertaining anything, using there is nothing to entertain. Things are passing away in such a rate, disappearing like anything, so there is nothing to grasp, nothing to assume, nothing to react. So this appear in this productive world, in the creative world, as something backward, something unsocial, something not to be promoted. So therefore you keep on new construction, creation, production is going on. So much so your mind is amused, so mind is escaped to seeing towards the cessation. But in the meditation you try to do away with all the kind of that creativity, all the kind of the productivity, just look at the phenomena as such, and more what happens is when the gathering of the momentum happens, you see the dissolution part, you see the cessation part. When it is happening, if you are not mature enough, if you are not wise enough, often you withdraw back thinking that something unknown, something fearful, something novelty, so therefore withdrawal back into the known area is happening. So unless otherwise you are a wise person, unless otherwise you are a risk lover, unless otherwise you are a radical person, never consider this as a wisdom. So therefore more and more you have to see the cessation part. Our mind makes so much of stories, so much of perversions, so much of cheating stories. So you have to, in that state, your understanding towards this cheating nature, understanding towards these perversions must be there, but early part of your meditation, that is not much relevant. So once meditation come up to a certain level, in the 7 stages of purification, it says, whenever you try to see the phenomena is very fast, in a flux-like situation where you can't label it as modes, as duality. So at that level, mind is undergoing a very fast evolution, and there that particular person must be learned, must be given with the knowledge, the cheating nature of the mind. So when and where the materiality is going to dissolve, what you feel is that me and not me boundary disappears. Earlier all the experience whatever related with the materiality, you had this is up to this level it is me, beyond that not me. That was very clear. With that only we have something called identity. To have an identity, the boundary must be there. But when and where the materiality dissolves, the boundary disappears, ultimately you feel something, but you can't figure it out, me and not me. So when that happens, if you consider this as an adventure, mind is ready to develop. Mind is ready to take the next step. But if you consider this as something threatening, something challenging your ego, definitely you will open your eyes and start fast breathing, forced breathing in order to have the delimitation and boundaries, and you assume again the materiality. So materiality, when it is dissolving, no boundary. That is the experience you are going to have, but hardly you can put into words. But if you learn, if you have heard about it, if you have experienced it, then you can easily understand when and where you be familiar with the in-breath and out-breath, the difference between the in-breath and out-breath disappears. So it's a very good sign. Now you are dissolving the boundaries. Ultimately when you go there, you feel, I am here, now, sitting, not dead, not sleeping, not unconscious, but I can't see the limits. So when that happens, sometimes only see only part of your body, other part appear like disappeared. Upper part is available, lower part is not there. Or this part is available, that part is not there. So if you have so much of love to your body and your configuration, it is threatening. So what will happen, you open your eyes and get up and go and you touch everywhere to see whether is everything intact. Then you are very happy. You never allow that dissolution to take place. The Buddha says, when the boundary disappears, it appears like substance disappears. This much the perception. Everything based on the boundary. When the boundary disappears, appear like the substance disappears. As far as the feelings are concerned, naturally you have the desire for the desirable feeling, pleasurable feeling, and you have the hatred to the undesirable feeling. But when you are to see whatever may be the feeling right from the beginning to the end, any desirable feeling at its face value, outset, it is desirable, ever it is ceases to exist, leaving room for the undesirable feeling. But you never observe it unless otherwise you go prepared. So that knowledge is necessary. Whenever the desirable feeling disappears, it makes rooms for undesirable feelings to arise, but you never notice it because your mind is bewildered with the desirability, the face value. So therefore, it is leading to undesirable thinking or making room for undesirable thing, you never feel it. As far as the undesirable feelings arise in pain, for example, you start with undesirable or hateful kind of outlook. So each and every undesirable feeling, when it is disappearing, make room for desirable thing, pleasurable thing, but you never notice it because you look at it from that hateful outlook. And whenever you note desirability as desirability, undesirability as undesirability, and wait to see the natural end of either, you find good thing end up with the bad thing end up with the good thing, add together, divide by 2, exactly the same. Whether it's good or bad, end up with the good. Not only that, when and where the desirable feeling of pleasure arises, you note it, and if you are lucky enough, you will see it is end up with undesirable thing. And when and where you are efficient enough to note undesirable feeling of pain, and to see it is ending up with the pleasure. And ultimately you find out of your whole sitting time, Desirable feeling and undesirable feeling only accountable maybe 5 to 10%. What about the rest of 80%? It is not desirable, neither desirable nor undesirable. But we have no label for that. Because our mind is always full with pleasure principle. So therefore you add another criterion in between this desirability and undesirability. There's a neutral feeling, no pain, no pleasure. So whether you meditate or not, most of the time you are there. But the norm, the rule of thumb, the yardstick what the Buddha suggested, if you know it, it's desirable. If you do not know, it's a pain. So that opening, that introduction, never possible unless otherwise you know desirable as desirable, as undesirable as undesirable. So in the meditation to the feelings, you note at the beginning, they are reciprocal to each other, but whatever not come under the label of desire or undesirable, huge area you come to know, it is neither pain, no pleasure. When and where you observe it, you find it is not a result of your meditation. It is a result of your just noting. And wherever the posture, whatever the time, most of the time you are in no pain, no pleasure, but it is boring. Very monotonous. Very unbecoming. Very feel like outcasted. So therefore you select one or the other. What happens is again from the frying pan to the fireplace. This is what we call hobbies. This is what you call recreation. This is what you call pastime. So understanding your no pain, no pleasure, and instead of considering it as a boring, outcasted and corner kind, like instead if you are going to label it as solitude, peace of mind, contentment, imagine the difference to your life. And see how much we are in this rut, always preconceived idea, we must chase. Not only we must chase, we might train our children also to chase behind the pleasure. So what a crime. You have no, if you know really the balanced understanding, your love, that beloved children will never mislead you people. You mislead it because you misunderstand. And just understanding and give the proper proportion to the desirability, undesirability, there is no pain, no pleasure, itself is a very big opening. And when and where it happens, the pleasure or feelings has a huge amount of cheating nature and perverted nature in not only individually within oneself, it's a human nature. So therefore, even if you are to realize it, even if you are to experience it, you doubt, because whenever you talk with other person, they will say you are crack, you are not. Because all the others are chasing behind the pleasure principle, you are talking nonsense. So therefore, happily or likely or unlikely, or knowingly or unknowingly, you suit into the majority's idea, and naturally you become pleasure seeker, and ultimately your mind become paralyzed to the crooked to the one side. So therefore even the pain is concerned or pleasure is concerned, till you understand no pain, no pleasure, and recognize this as what you call the solitude, that's what you call the peace of mind, what you call the contentment, you are torturing yourself under the name of pleasure principle. And not only that, you have been tortured, or we have been misled by your parents and my parents, and you are misleading your children, and therefore it is in a vicious cycle. And it has become a norm to be fool, an idiot, and chasing others. And if you take a poll, opinion poll among the idiots and the wise, you see who is going to win. Imagine, just imagine. So we are in a democratic country. Majority means what? Wise people, you think? No? So during the time of the Buddha, in the Kitagiri kind of a place, people got together and prepared handmade robe. And they were very happy to give it to one suitable monk. And occasionally, events happened accordingly. Venerable Sariputta came into that place. And place was more acquainted with Devadatta. And ultimately there was opinion poll to whom should this robe given. And 99% 99 for the Devadatta. And asked them, no, Venerable Sariputta comes only here and now whenever we are reaping the crop. But the Devadatta is over from morning to evening with us. He is smiling with us, be with us. Therefore, robe should go to the Devadatta. That is the majority idea. So that is exactly even today. So therefore, because we are kind of a people driven by the hedonic tones or feeling tones. It's a general term, general condition. So we are running with that. So whenever you are to understand no pain, no pleasure is the middle path, that's the only way leading to the Nibbana, that vocabulary, that new terminology, coining itself has to be understood. But the thing is, when and where you understand it, the boredom comes and disturb you. Because no pain, no pleasure is boring, monotonous. So the second thing is to get rid of your misperception. So therefore, materiality, you have two veils or two layers or two screens of misunderstanding. Simple unknowing and the misperception. As for the feeling also concerned, simple unknowing, you normal people do not know there is a no pain, no pleasure situation. Even if it will be introduced under one's very nose, there are misconception, the boredom, the monotonous nature, the cornered-like thinking, they underrate it. Then again, you have to remove the misconception and say, no, this is the middle path, this is the way leading to Nibbana. So therefore, not only that you have to recognize no pain, no pleasure, you have to maximize it. You have to dwell upon that. You have to label it as your solitude, your peace of mind, your relaxation, your contentment, your happiness, and your self-sufficiency. And perception-wise, the Buddha says, we are completely living in this perceived world. But you see that you are. So, when and where the perception fading off, it appears the world is fading off, like object is fading off, like, because we are completely dependent on the perception. So therefore, whenever the breath becomes subtle, becomes calm, becomes docile, becomes unperceivable, your labeling becomes difficult. Now you can't discriminate in breath and out breath. So now you are in a problem. Met up with the problem, should I maintain with the noting or labeling, or should I just wait and just observe it? No one can give exact answer. But to understand, you have to note it in order to take it under control, in order to make it docile, in order to make it face to face it. While observing, if it is disappearing, the difference become equal, not possible to discriminate, then you have to understand your noting become invalid, so that your perception become questionable, but still you can feel you are living, you can feel you are awake, you can feel you are mindful, and you have to just let the vitakka vichara or labeling and discursive thoughts to go off. And when we keep on practicing, huge amount of doubts, huge amount of bewilderment sets in. So there you don't know what to do with, because now you are leading to unknown area. So there, if you manage to maintain even without labeling, ultimately you can't make it out whether you are breathing or not. Often you may say, my breath ceases to exist. Generally you know if the breath is ceasing to exist, you have to die. But you know you are thoroughly awake and you are fully not sleeping, not unmindful. But still, the cessation of perception amount to be cessation of the object. That is what the Buddha says. Therefore, we are living in such a world with so much of labels, so much of cognition and recognition, and with the perception. That is why this information technology is governing the world. They can do anything. Whenever you are being bombarded with one particular concept for 20, 30 times, without knowing, you get attracted into that. That is what we call advertisement. Your mind is adverted to that in a very attractive way. Ultimately, you become a consumer without any utility value. So that is how in the media it is happening, and in the advertisement it happens. So therefore, we can't do away with that. This is the society at large. And if you understand this is the game of perception, and you have to understand without perception you can't live, but understand the perception as perception, not to as a reality, that is what you call the wisdom. You have to use it up to the point it gives the utility value, but don't what the IT people or advertising people or politicians going to say. They are creating a dream world, but you have to understand it's a perception. So that is, whenever you are to understand the dream world and the awakened world, it's a natural phenomenon. But whenever you manage to see the gross breath, subtle breath and subtlest breath, you are met up with that kind of a thing. Sometimes you are in a situation where you don't know whether it's a reality or a concept, whether it's a mind-made or reality. So when it comes there, the cold sweat or goosebumps and uncertainty going to arise. And you feel you are now lost in an area, no orientation. The commentators, they say, when you come up to that level, you feel like you lost in the midst of the sea, or you lost in the midst of a desert, or midst of a forest, and everywhere you find the same. You can't make out east and the west. So that kind of lost appear, that is actually the losing of your ego. But it is nauseating. Again you feel like doing forced breathing and try to get the breathing which is tangible, which is touchable, and then only you feel back at home. You never allow that thing to happen because you are understanding with the ego, understanding with the perception, is the one more familiar. So therefore, there the wisdom is, with respect to the path that you come up to that level, you have to go forward few steps and necessarily come back again and again go there, and then only you can understand the play of this perception. And when it happens, by understanding the way the mind works, you understand the human mind. This is the way human mind is working, not the my mind. Everyone is like that. Everyone have this new phobia. They are not happy with the unknown area. Therefore, generally they have the fear of freedom. So whenever the freedom sets in, they appear like lost. So you have to understand, under such circumstances, mind come out with 1,001 stories. So much of opinions, so much of doubts. So to understand the doubt as doubt, opinion as opinion, and cheating nature as a cheating nature, if someone is going to tell you, you feel irritated. You feel like unwanted interference into your psychology. So therefore the Buddha says, take the mindfulness as such, you like mirror, let it happen again and again, then you can understand our mind, the rational mind, our deductive mind, always try to keep within our territory, within our ego, within our conceit, within our desirable area. When and where it is going to the new areas, that very rational mind is blocking our knowledge. And in order not to have adventurous visiting to the new area, it is coming out with so much of craftsmanship, so much of new ideas, so much of suggestions, alternative. That is what you call sankhara. It is making a lot of creativity, coming out with this and that suggestions. So the Buddha says, as far as you fail to understand how much the mind is crafty, how much the mind is find escapism, and if you can't fail to understand, you do not know, due to this storytelling mind, due to the proliferation, again you come back to the source, never go forward. So therefore, not only the restraining of your physical and verbal deeds, but restraining of your mental volitional activities, will or determination is most important, is to recognize as it is. When it comes and raising the head, you have to understand it is always find escapism. Otherwise, knowingly or unknowingly, you fertilize it, you feed it, ultimately get into the trap. So this is how the volitional activities or sankhara is going to work. So therefore, when you come up to that kind of decisive form, the best thing is not to do something. Let things to happen. That is what you call unreaction. That is what you call unassuming. That is what you call just being. That is what you call get a distance and observing. And that is the most difficult part, and because that we have been so industrious, we have been so ingenious, we have been so creative, we have been so result oriented, we have been so productive. So at that level you have to understand the negative side of it, but not killing that ability. You know it is there, but here you on an experimental basis just be. Learn the art of just being, and that is what you call letting the cessation to take place unhindered. Now cessation is taking place, but the creative ideas, volition is come and play. Try to take the path back to the source. So we are understanding that is very difficult, and the vijnana, the consciousness, it always discriminate have and have not, and keep ourselves as we always on the materialistic side, have side, pleasurable side, cognizable side, creative side. It always cut off ourselves from the immaterial side, no pain, no pleasure side, no perception side, just being side, appear like negative, destructive. So therefore keeping ourselves busy with there, and it is the most naughty ruler, leader, so-called dividing and ruling. He divided this thing, have and have not, and keep ourselves with the have. Pay, pleasure, recognizable, creative part, and other thing appear like negative. So therefore, even the Buddha leading you to the place where no materiality, no pain, no pleasure, no perception, and unassuming state, there you feel unfamiliar. You feel it is something new. So therefore, familiar side is the one, the known devil is better than the unknown, something is better than nothing. So therefore, naturally, the consciousness get a chance and start with the magical world, creating everything out of materiality, feeling, perception, and volitional activities, and you are very happy with your own creation, very happy with your own new ideas, and you play with them and fail to see the natural cessation or reduction or wearing and tearing and waning off. So, but the core teaching of the Buddha, the wisdom is, the waning part is part and parcel of the phenomena. When it is happening, you can see how the materiality come into play, how the feeling come and play, recognition, cognizing and perception come and play, creativity come and play, and the consciousness come and play, and everything is make yourself busy and bring back to the known area. But you have to be prepared, you have to be non-reactive to see that the cessation to take place as it is, then that anything arising has its own nature to ceases. And even if you understand it is possible in this life, on an experimental level, that's all we can do in a retreat like this. But later huge challenge is there, how to put that into our daily life, how to incorporate that into our normal life. So that is why the Buddha says, when and where you understand this wider view, unbiased view about the phenomena, to see the beginning, the middle and the end in the same token, then onward you have to reconsider about your verbal behavior, what to talk and what not to talk. And you have to decide upon your physical behavior, your industrious nature, or should you keep yourself busy throughout the day and whole your life and make a busy bones, or take little time for your spiritual development. And when these two considered with your own wise reflection, wise view and the radical reflection, that indicates in long run your livelihood. Your livelihood must be not to exploit any other thing or nature, just to satisfy with the basic needs, and if anything happen, consider as an endowment and give more value to the solitude, more value to the contentment, more value to the peace of mind, and then your knowledge will be reinvested. Otherwise, even if you recognize and if you are not ready to reconsider Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, Samma Ajiva, there is no permanent change going to happen. So therefore, not that it is impossible as a lay person, not that impossible as a family member, but the thing is how to employ or implement this Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, Samma Ajiva. You must have such a personality, you must have such a willpower, you must have such a understanding of the suffering of the world and the preparedness. Then slowly your likings and dislikes will be shuffled, reconsidered, and then only you find, when the Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, Samma Ajiva come into being, then you find you have enough energy. Otherwise you are exhausted, you are weaned off, you are dried out. So therefore people say, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough energy, I don't have enough money and all the kind of thing. But once the Samma Kammanta, Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, Samma Ajiva adjusted, you have enough, but it is in a wrong proportion. And when and where the enough energy come into being, the mindfulness is always intact. Otherwise you are very exhausted, and one under the exhausted situation, very difficult, you feel of course, difficult to keep up with the mindfulness or diligence, because it is demanding so much of energy. But energy, if you do not know how to balance it, the mindfulness never continues, it is never steadfast. When the mindfulness starts steadfast, if you are a lay or ordained, male or female, Buddhist or non-Buddhist, everywhere you find a peace of mind, you find a collectedness, and whatever you do, you can do one thing at a time and that done well basis, and once that is finished, you are ready for the next one, and ready for the next one. And not that multitasking, doing everything, putting into the same bag, but one by one, in a piecemeal basis. Ultimately, of course, that multitasking also come into being, but each and every time you accomplish a job, you get the job satisfaction. But if you are going to do everything and ultimately everything is going to failure, it is exhaustion. So So therefore, once you put into the proper order, it is not something new, it's a mere aligning of the available variable factors. That is what it means by the wisdom. You have everything, it's a matter of putting in the priority order and orderly manner. Once it comes there, you feel the special gratitude for the Buddha, special gratitude to the Dhamma and the Sangha, but nothing Buddha gave additional to you, nothing you tax from you. Everything was there, it is putting in the efficient order or alignment. So therefore, as far as the resources are concerned, endowments are concerned, we have nothing, any difference. Only the thing is, different people are in different alignments. So on that, we have different gradation, but keep on reshuffling and readjusting. And when going there, you may find that is the only thing worth calling wisdom, not something related to the outside world, past and the future, other people and other places. They are all the worldly knowledge. Of course, it has some kind of a reflection upon this wisdom, the spiritual wisdom, but when and where it is happening, the wisdom going to come into the proper order, that you find that wisdom, no one can rob you. Whatever you have earned, you can't give it to someone also. And some scientists, they say that wisdom is not under anyone's authority. Everyone has equal chances to deal with it. So therefore you can't say, I am deprived of that knowledge because that person is or domineering me, or that power is domineering me. No, that is as far as this wisdom is concerned, it is completely independent. It's your correct view, it is your correct or radical reflection. When it is happening, the knowledge comes into the proper order. And that is when and where, even if it is happening in a quick way, each and every time it is electric. Each and every time it is accidental. Of course, development of other qualities are gradual, but the endowment or enlightening of that energy, enlightening of that wisdom is ever electric. It is ever accidental, impromptu, so therefore it is rejuvenating when and where it happens. So many people try to see the gradation in, but very difficult to put a gradation. Of course, in the 7 stages of purification, Buddha has given some kind of a sequential order, but that is not the only way it is happening. When and where you are awakening into the truth, even in a small basis, that indicates you have the potential. The way or lifestyle of you must be how to happen that in a more frequent way. If it is happening more frequently, that is the way. If it is already happening, don't try to accelerate it. Then you are missing out. When it is happening unhindered way, let it happen in the natural way. Ultimately it will gather the momentum. And only thing what you have to do is not to disturb it, not to put impediments to it. For that you are responsible. The development or momentum or acceleration is none of your business. So therefore each and every time you must always think sabba papa sakarana. First and foremost thing is, first do no harm. That you can't attribute to someone. All the time, as much as you know, keep that it is ever increasing or developing. Your main task is to not to develop, not to have any hindrances. And if it is happening, take it as a lesson, not to happen it again and again. So when it is happening, even you are going to teach others or not, that vibration, that healthy vibration is teaching others. Not only the human, even the nature, even the plants, even the animals can understand it. So therefore many people consider this kind of endeavor as a selfish. They think you are going to enlighten individually. But in reality, when and where someone is leading, there's a huge amount of good vibrations happen. So it is always associated with others. So therefore don't try to answer this kind of question or going to say that, no, I am not selfish, I am concerned, no kind of thing. So Dhamma will take care. As far as you keep your motto, first thing is not to harm. As far as you are not harming others, the Buddha says that protection is to back to you, you are not harming yourself. If you are harming others, definitely that harmfulness come back to you, so therefore you are vulnerable. So therefore, as far as you are keeping on with these three restraints, moral, concentration and wisdom, you are giving that broad protection to the whole world, as well as in return, you are protecting yourself. So therefore, they are reciprocal each other. So individually, if you can take own responsibility, that's the maximum we can do. So therefore, hopefully, these talks and your endeavor, as well as the past experience, will give more and more straightening of your objective and remembering of the objective more and more. With that remark, I would like to sum up the today talk, and that will be the end of the series of the talks also. Thank you very much for the participation and listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So today also we will take little time to share merits with all the seen and unseen, and those who all help organize retreats under these places and everything. So may everyone rejoice our good deeds. With that idea in our mind, we are going to recite Pali stanzas. Ittavata jangammehi sambhatam punya sampadam sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata jangammehi sambhatam punya sampadam sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata jangammehi sambhatam punya sampadam sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasatta ca bhummatta devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sasanam. Akasatta ca bhummatta devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu desanam. Akasatta ca bhummatta devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu mam parang. Idang ho jnatinang hotu sukhita hontu jnatiyo. Idang ho jnatinang hotu sukhita hontu jnatiyo. Idang ho jnatinang hotu sukhita hontu jnatiyo. Imina punya kammene mami bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammene mami bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammene mami bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.